It's something else.
I can't. It's just close.
Param Vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam, total world victory of Hare Krishna. Welcome to our lounge room with our amazing curtains, which my wife absolutely hates, but I simply don't look at. Let's do this. Look, yeah, ready? You grab onto one side of this. No, you grab one side.
I'm feeling warm.
No. No. Hold that behind you. Other hand over here. Yeah, look. No curtains. See?
Stop it.
Hang on. Hold it up.
Cover yourself.
It's upside down now. Look, no, look. I'm serious. Look, we can do it like this. See?
No, thank you. I'm okay.
You want to do it?
Mm-mm.
Okay. Anyway, we're back after 4 months. It's been 4 months since we did our last podcast. Lots of stuff has happened since then.
Mm-hmm.
We went to India. We did the Vaishnava Youth Bus Tour across New Zealand. Well, the North Island at least. That was like, this is actually pretty cool, you know? Reminds me of like one of those staged ISIS videos, you know, where they have the kind of thing hanging in the background. They're all standing in front of it. CIA productions, you know? Do something like that. We're going to hang this behind us. Anyway, you talk. I'm going to put this up. I think I can put this up.
Amor, can you please stop?
No, you just keep talking.
Anyway, so the youth bus tour. What else did we do? Continue working in the garden to make sure we are self-sufficient.
Before the war really kicks off. Yeah.
If there is any, of course.
Yeah, well, there will be. There is right now.
Yeah.
Waiting to expand.
Mm-hmm. And then basically, yeah, we're just setting up everything to be self-sufficient. We are totally engaged in doing that most of the time. Of course, my husband works during the day and he comes to help me in the afternoon.
Yeah, double shifts.
Double shift.
Double shifts, yeah.
It's kind of like
What?
anyways, he is the way he is.
How's that?
Okay.
That's pretty cool. Cuts off a bit of the light. And then look, I can do this. I reckon that
I think you need to go a bit more over there because I am right in the corner.
Okay.
Okay.
And then I think I can do
Need to stretch my legs.
I think in here you can do virtual background.
Mm-hmm.
And you can say I have a green screen.
Well, you need to take that thing off to actually look like
What about this?
Yeah.
Yeah. You reckon?
Yeah.
Okay, whatever. Looks pretty ghetto. Leave a comment if you got something that you particularly want us to talk about. We went to India, to Vrindavan. I spoke at a conference in New Delhi.
Mm-hmm.
Then we went back to Vrindavan again, and it was my first time in Vrindavan. I went into the 24-hour kirtan.
Mm-hmm.
Did the midnight to 4 a.m. shift. It's midnight to 4? 1 a.m. to 4 a.m.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd get there a bit before 1 to 4, and then just leave after Mangalati kind of starts.
Mm-hmm.
And then we put Parambhava, my previous wife's ashes, into the river Yamuna. And what else we do there? Went to Baba Ulasa, which is Brajanath Prabhu's ashram. I stayed with Nrsimha Prabhu, Prabhupada disciple.
Mm-hmm.
He introduced me to Brajanath. Then you guys came, Prahlad, Isabella, and you. Then we went to Jaipur, had some adventures there. Radha Govinda. Then we went to Mayapur from there.
Yeah, Jaipur, Mayapur, Kolkata.
I saw Ajamil Prabhu there.
Yes, we did.
That was cool.
Yeah.
His new building.
You did 24-hour kirtan. Oh, no, it wasn't in Mayapur. Wasn't it in Mayapur that you did 24-hour kirtan? Yes, that's why you did the 24-hour kirtan as well. You participated.
Well, they have a continuous 24-hour kirtan there.
Yes,
I did there in Prabhupada's Bhajan Kutia. That was really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Then we went to Hyderabad, and then we went to
Ahobilam.
Yeah, the Nrsimha temples, the 9 Nrsimha temples. That was really cool.
Yeah.
And then we went to Chennai, where we stayed in the Anjaneya, Panchamuki Anjaneya, the five-faced Hanuman. We went to ISKCON Chennai for the Sunday feast, kirtan there. And then to the Shiva temple. And then we flew back.
Yes.
Big Shiva temple there, the ancient one.
Yeah.
Yeah. We got back. We did the Vaishnava youth bus tour. It was like 23 or 24 teenagers.
No, 21 teenagers, 3 adults.
21 teenagers, 3
Yeah,
adults. Yeah,
3
we
adults,
did that.
Yeah.
And
Actually, 4 adults.
yeah, that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
That was pretty intense, actually. Yeah, I met I met the other leaders the night before. 2 of the other leaders the night before, and then the third other leader on the day of. And then I say that we had an arranged marriage between 4 adults, and then started co-parenting 21 teenagers that we adopted the next day. It's pretty much was the experience of it. 21 different, human beings with their different kind of parenting styles that they've been brought up in, and then 4 different adults who are all parents, but all have different parenting styles. So negotiating all of that over the course of it was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we have an extra 2 on the day before.
Extra 2 what?
2 days before the end of the youth bus tour. 2 new leaders.
Oh yeah.
Assistant.
Krishnendu came in and Krishnananda for that final chapter.
Yeah,
it's pretty cool. We did a 24-hour kirtan in the middle of that here in Eltham. That was cool.
Yeah.
And then we went to Auckland, and I put up a bunch of things there. India, Youth Bus Tour, NZ, Trump was Prabhupada poisoned, and Kasyapa Muni versus Kardama Muni. So Trump got elected, and he's now in charge in America. Namras's Prabhupada poison thing came out. I don't like that blur. I'm turning it off. Because it's not crisp, it's like weird. There you go. You can't see all of the curtains. You can see that kind of like Hare Krishna, ISIS background.
Anyways.
Yeah. Hare Krishna International State or whatever. HKS.
So we've been quite engaged in so many things without stop.
Yeah. I wonder if anyone can hear us. I wonder if the sound is even working.
I have no idea. I think there are 3 people watching. If you could please tell us.
Yeah, let us know if you can if you can actually hear it. Leave a comment. So there was that election. Trump got elected. I joke about that. I'm like, I was going to do a Vedic Intel report episode to talk more in depth about that, but I joke about it as kind of like they locked down the whole world in concert, just in lockstep over the whole world, but then they were defeated by people going out and ticking a box. That's the power of democracy. I'm like, I'm so cynical about democracy. It's like, even if you listen, if you now they've got Hitler's AI translated speeches in English, but you can get a book called The Collected Speeches of Adolf Hitler, and it's from like 1919 or 1920 through till his last one from the bunker in 1945. If you read those, he's just like, democracy is a scam. It's a way of manipulating the people. I mean, even the American founding fathers, because America is not actually a democracy, it's a constitutional republic. And even like the prototype of democracy in Athens only lasted for a few years. It didn't last very long. And it was more kind of like it's not an oligarchy, but it's like only a select group of people could vote. It wasn't everyone could vote. Not everyone could vote. It was like, there was like a qualification to be able to vote.
I wonder what was the qualifications for people to vote?
Well, you had to own land is one thing.
Okay.
Or maybe not, actually. I might be confusing the conditions they had in Athens with the ones they had in Rhodesia. So in Rhodesia, which was a British colony, then it became unilaterally independent in 1965 because they wanted to go to like just like a what do they call a universal franchise? Everyone can vote democracy from like 0 to everyone can vote democracy. And so the problem with that is like you had like, I don't know what it was, 100,000 white people, and then like 10 million black people, something like that, but between two different ethnic groups. And so the argument that they made there was like, we can do that. We could go to that, but what we need to do is we need to say that you need to have a certain level of education to be able to vote, because you can't just have people who just have like, well, I'll skip to the end of the whole thing.
No, like in South America, you know what they do?
What they do there?
Like the candidates go around to the most
And pay people to vote
rural areas,
Mhm.
and then they give them like a kg of sugar or rice and vote for me. And people like, oh yeah, they're giving us something, so we're gonna vote.
Yeah,
you know
yeah.
what I mean? It's like,
Yeah, because they're
Yeah.
not politically astute. They don't understand. So that was the founding fathers. They said that if the people figure out that they can vote themselves largesse from the public treasury, the thing is doomed. Once people figure out that they can vote themselves money, if the vast majority of people figure out that they can vote for a party that will tax everyone else and then take the money and give it to them, you're done. That's game over at that point, because you can secure the most votes by just, taxing the people who have got money and then giving it to everyone else. So, I mean, I talked to a farmer in, down near Nurturing Soul, and he said, look, he said, we're in real trouble here because as a farmer, like, we're such a small constituent. Like, we're a massive part. It's like something like, I don't know, 8% of the economy is agriculture, or maybe more. Export economy, it's probably much bigger. Like, it's one of our primary exports, right? Is agriculture. So that's where a lot of the money comes from. But he said, but at the same time, I only get one vote. And then a single mother in South Auckland who's on the benefit also gets one vote. My vote's worth exactly the same as hers. So, these parties, they just like give more benefits to people living in the cities, and then, they can get the votes. And so that was what Hitler said. That's what the founding fathers of America said. And that's what they said in Rhodesia. They said, we want people, I think one of the things there was you had to own land or own a business. And you had to have a certain level. You had to be literate, like you had to be able to read and write. It was like a basic requirement. So it wasn't racist in the sense that it was like depending on the color of your skin. But of course, critical theorists would say it's structurally racist because, functionally, when you look at it, those people are all white. But black people could still do it. And then in South Africa and in Rhodesia or Zimbabwe now, the general mass of people afterwards are like, hey, we were actually better off before. Like, now we have like a universal franchise, like we can all vote, but it's like it's worthless. The whole country's falling to pieces.
Quite unfortunate, yeah.
So yeah, democracy is a sham. And the idea that, that we're just going to vote and then somehow that saves the day, it's like, I don't think so. You can't vote your way out of a situation that you got into through voting your way into it. So we're going to see some fundamental political restructuring happening. Yeah, I don't want to go too deep into the conspiracy things on this podcast. I can do that on another one. The Vedic Intel Report.
Yeah.
Go more into the conspiracy side of things. Was Prabhupada poisoned? So Namras's podcast came out. We were driving to Auckland when it came out, so I put it on. And yeah. Anything you want to say about it?
Well, the whole discussion about like the person who was debunking the poisoned theory of the other group. Basically, I switched off after I heard them just like dismissing it, pushing it down, dismissing it, but not actually saying, okay, so this is what is the other team saying. How could that be that he could be poisoned? So we have in this side, we have what Srila Prabhupada actually said, and then who said to him, I think the symptoms that you're showing is, that you are being poisoned. And rather like studying that, who was the person that were just like dismissing it, what the other team was saying, and dismissing, criticizing, and just debunking it. and belittling, their ideas or discussions they were bringing out front.
Mhm.
And when that happened, basically I switched off. It's like there is nothing these people can do except for pushing it down. And that's exactly what happens when in political groups. There's always some one of the teams will be dismissing the other team and then attacking the other team and just making them look very bad.
Yeah.
And that's exactly like once I was seeing in these discussions, like, okay, why do you have to do that? What are you trying to hide here? One, you don't have the ability to go and, discuss all the possibilities rather than just like criticizing the other team. Like that this is not a win-win situation for me. So
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's three or four types of discussion according to Vedic Nyaya logic. There's Vad, which is a discussion which is designed to arrive at the truth by examining, the arguments. I wouldn't. They're clearly and fairly, like steel manning the other position. Like you can argue the other position to the satisfaction of your opponent, where they go like, "Yeah, that's what I'm saying," and they might even be like, "Yeah, I didn't even think of that myself." That's called Vada when you're arguing in that style. Then there's Jalpa, which is just like you're arguing to win. Like, I don't care. I'm not interested in what the truth of the matter is. And that might look like I already know what it is. Like, I'm not in this conversation to discover anything new. I'm in this conversation to win this argument. That's called Jalpa. And then there's Vitanda, which is I'm in this argument just like to destroy you. So then you just go fully to like ridiculing, ad hominem. There's nothing wrong with ridiculing an argument in terms of like argumentum ad ridiculo or ad ridiculum, which is like where you extend an argument to its ridiculous conclusion, to show that like if you follow that through to its logical conclusion, it would be ridiculous. But a lot of times people do that with a straw man of the argument. Oh, what a ridiculous thing, like Trump is saying that people should inject themselves with bleach, that kind of thing. It's like a straw man and then making it ridiculous.
Yeah.
That's Vitanda, that's called. Destructive. So yeah, there wasn't so much of a Vard there. To me, the thing I spent some time talking with Namras about this. Because to me, both sides, anyone who makes an absolute truth claim about it is philosophically deviant, because the subject is actually unknowable. And then when I've talked with other devotees, they're like, no, the standard of the court of law. And I'm like, okay, a couple of things. Number one, we're not in a court of law. So we're not arguing according to that standard. The standard of knowability is given in Praman, or the epistemology of the Gaudiya Vaishnav philosophy. And that's based on, there's Anuman, Pratyaksha, and Shabda. So there's like Pratyaksha, the empirical evidence, what's observable. There's Anuman, logical reasoning, inference. And then there's different types of Shabda, or heard testimony, ultimately relying on the Veda. So absolute truth can only be established, Siddhanta can only be established in the presence of Shabda to support it. So people go, well, this is like got nothing to do with this. This is something to do with the courts. And then, so what they've done is they've changed the domain of truth. And then they say, well, there are relative truths, but there's no absolute truth claim. There's no Siddhanta on this. What that means is that there can be relative truths about whether Prabhupada was poisoned or not. It's ultimately unknowable for living entities without divine revelation. It's not intersubjectively knowable in an objective sense, because you can't point to the Veda and say, and in conclusion, here is the Veda. If you've studied the Vyakarana of the Vedanta Sutra, because the Vedanta Sutra is Vyakarana, it's a The sutras are the different parts of a vada,
Mhm.
of an argument
Mhm.
that's constructed in that way. And then, like it begins with Janmad Atato Brahma Jigyasa,
Mhm.
Janmadyasya Yata,
Mhm.
and then Shastra Yonit Bhat,
Mhm.
because the Shastra says that it is.
Mhm.
And then, in different parts, it quotes the actual Shastra that backs up the Siddhanta
Mhm.
that's given there. So the even Atato Brahma Jigyasa, which sounds like the beginning of the Vedanta Sutra,
Mhm.
so now therefore let us inquire into what is Brahman. In his Govinda Bhashya commentary, Srila Baladev Vidyabhushan presents the Vyakarana there, and that's actually the Siddhanta. That's actually the the conclusion of that argument. Good night. Haribol. It's unknowable in the absence of Shabda Praman. There's no, so, it might be, it might not be. And you could say it's ultimately a matter of a devotee's faith. They might have faith that he was poisoned, or they might have faith that he's not poisoned, or they might be agnostic on the matter. And all three of those are compatible with, there's no shastric. Nobody can give an argument that says, but the final decisive thing is the Shastra says he was not poisoned, or the Shastra says a sadhu can never die, poison can never be part of the intermediate cause of the death of a sadhu. No one can produce a shastric proof like that, right?
Yeah.
If they can produce a shastric statement like that, then that conclusively would rule it out. But then no such statement exists. So therefore, to make an absolute truth claim that he definitely was not poisoned is not possible. Now, even if you say that, we secured a conviction in the court with all the evidence, people get sentenced to death. And then later on, they go, it was the wrong guy. People have been in prison for 20 years, and then they let them out, and then they have to pay them, so many millions of dollars because they were wrongfully convicted. So even like conviction in a court of law with all the evidence and everything is not conclusive truth. It's unknowable ultimately.
Yeah, and for that reason, having to study all of the, even interviewing the people that they were present at that time, mostly the people that were cooking for him, who they were, studying who, their personalities and their background. That can tell you a lot about these people that were surrounding Srila Prabhupada. And I was listening, I don't know if you listen the whole podcast, but I was listening one of the podcasts with, what's his name? The one who created the book, pardon me.
Which book?
Lord Narasinghadev, who produced the book of Lord Narasinghadev.
This one here.
Yeah.
Dennis Gorak, Dhruva Gorak.
Dhruva.
Yeah.
So in his
Dharmatma's son.
Yeah. In his preaching session, he was talking about one of the gurus that was
Keep talking.
poisoned. One of his disciples actually gave him the full poison.
Oh, was that who was talking in the video I sent you?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
And then that made me wonder, and one of the writings of this guru was in base of that, where he offered himself, like the internal of himself and everything about himself to Krishna, and in a way, surrender. No, in a way, completely surrender. So he was, when I hear that discussion, I was like, okay, so the poisoning to the gurus is not something new. It happened before.
Oh yeah.
So if given that Srila Prabhupada is one of the very powerful gurus, that in so short time he was producing a massive expansion of ISKCON at his age, obviously for some people
it's a threat.
It's a threat.
Yeah.
And having the background in the past, some gurus were, poisoned.
Jesus is like the classic example of, an acharya being taken out by the system.
And this is the thing, even with who was the person that got shot in America, the president?
JFK.
JFK, he got killed. Trump almost got killed.
Martin Luther King. Well,
They were killed.
I don't know if Trump almost got killed. I mean, that's the story,
But,
sure.
yeah, that's the yeah. Anyways, so the point that I'm going to is very prominent and powerful people that are changing the course of what normally is to a different level is a big threat for some people.
Yeah, for entrenched. I mean, I was reading Prabhupada talking about the currency system.
Mm-hmm.
That's of great interest to me. His take on it, very prescient. You know, he understood what was happening. There's a financial system reset happening right now. You know, people think it's, you know, oh, it's because of what Zelensky was wearing in the meeting. And it's like, oh, dude, read Prabhupada's thing. It's like read Karl Marx and read Prabhupada. It's the 80-year debt cycle economic system reset. And then all the other stuff is window dressing on top of it to keep all the peasants, you know, from like throwing the table over.
Yeah.
But Prabhupada in there, he was saying, oh, the government may arrest me for infusing this different idea into you. He understood.
Yeah.
He was like, I'm telling you how this thing actually works and how to do it differently. And the people who are running this thing, like the government and, you know, the people who are running the government behind it, they're not going to like it. They don't like it. You know, they put you into the school and they train you to think in a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
Even like the other thing that's big right now is Hitler, you know. So you look up what Prabhupada said about Hitler. He says, you know, he said, I don't think Hitler was such a bad man. The English, they killed him through propaganda. They're very good at killing him through propaganda. I don't think Hitler was such a bad man. What do you think? He said that to them. And he said, you're English. What do you think? And, you know, his disciple was like, just listening to you talking for the last couple of days has like completely inverted my whole understanding of history and everything. And it's like, it's revolutionary. You know, and then Prabhupada's out there telling them that, you know, that the moon landing was faked before they did the moon landing. Like, I did research into the moon landing back in 1998 or 98. It was 98, and wrote a book about it. And you know, astronauts who were in that program who complained about it and said it wasn't possible and it wasn't going to happen, they died. One astronaut was killed in his plane. Because they were pilots, you know, they were Air Force test pilots, Navy test pilots. Maybe Air Force or maybe Navy, not sure. Anyway, his plane malfunctioned and he crashed and died. Another one died when his car stalled on a railway track. That's a classic one, that one. You know, the car stalls on a railway track and then the train goes through it and kills him. That's a classic one. And then the other one was 3 of them died on the ground in a fire. So Gus Grissom, the reporters came, took a photograph of the thing, and he hung a lemon on it. And he said, if we can't even communicate between this capsule and the tower when we're on the ground, how are we supposed to communicate with the moon? Anyway, he goes in for a test and the whole thing burns up and kills him and 2 others. So my point here is that exactly what you're pointing to, like, you know, when the stakes are high, killing a few people up to and including the president of the United States right in front of everyone. Like, people are now saying Trump and Bondi and Cash Patel promised that they would release the Epstein files on day 1. And it's now weeks into this thing and they haven't released anything about that. So, you know, Tucker Carlson and others are saying there's obviously some force acting on the administration. And it's like, I was like, dude, the last person who tried to do this kind of thing got shot in the head and on live television in front of everyone, like right in front of everyone. Like, that's what happened to the last guy who tried to openly, as the president, go against the system. So when people are like, yeah, we ticked the box and now our guy's in there, I'm like, it doesn't work like that. It's like they want you to think that that's how it works, but your vote is pretty much worthless, man. Do you think people are voting for, you know, who voted to go into Iraq and kill 1 million people? Who voted for that? They're not voting for this stuff. You know, it's just about manipulating public opinion through sophisticated psychological operations to make them think that that's what they want to do, you know?
Anyways, going back to the Srila
Prabhupada being poisoned.
Yeah. So looking into all of this history of people, prominent people.
It's definitely, I mean,
It makes me, of course, there is this.
there's a motive, right?
Yeah, there is a motive,
There's a
and
motive.
there is a possibility there. It's open, right? So studying, interviewing people, it will be another thing, and doing factual things.
Yeah.
There's always a possibility rather than just shutting it down or
Well,
shutting people
yeah.
down and saying no or ridiculing them.
That first,
I don't think it's very helpful when we have to be, because Srila Prabhupada is our spiritual master, and what do we do, to, how old was he? Says
70,
70,
81.
81.
Yeah.
81-year-old spiritual master. We, as the disciples of him,
Yeah.
we can do something about it.
No, we can't.
I mean, yes, we can try to discover whether this is real or not real.
Well, this is what my point again is. It's unknowable. It's unknowable. People who are out here telling you that it definitely didn't happen and couldn't happen, they are lying. And they're philosophically deviant. And I'll tell you, this is my and also the people who are out here telling you that it definitely did happen are also lying. And to me, I think they're part of the same psychological operation to attack his movement, because they're both philosophically deviant in exactly the same way. They both make an absolute truth claim in the absence of the standard of proof that's necessary to make an absolute truth claim. You know, they're making an absolute truth claim about something that's unknowable, and in order to do that, they have to be dishonest. Both about the strength of their arguments and about the basic philosophy itself. And so they've departed from Gaudiya Vaishnavism. They've departed from Vaishnavism. They've departed from the Veda at that point. If they're making an absolute truth claim about something, they'll say that, like, oh, it's not the absolute truth, it's about relative mundane truths. But it's like, there is no way that you can say, the best you could say, this is the same argument I made about the safe and effective claim about the vaccines. You can't say that.
The Jews, you mean?
Huh?
Yeah, the Jews.
What about the Jews? How did we get to that?
No, the Jews, like the liquid.
The mRNA injections. Yeah. They made a claim that they were safe and effective, but it's like, how safe and how effective? You can't just blanket say they're safe and effective. Neither can you say that he definitely was or he definitely wasn't. It's like, you have to just lay out the whole case, and then it has the strength of whatever. But there's two things that I want to say about that. One is that the reason why, in my estimation, the GBC party, if you want to call them that, have taken it and made it like an official doctrine of ISKCON that you must deny that he was, poisoned, is because the statement that Srila Prabhupada was poisoned, and this is an argument that Vienkat Bhatta, Vinit Chandra, made on Namaras's podcast. It's in the short. He's saying, well, what would that say about the people that Prabhupada had chosen to be around him? It's like, nothing. He doesn't say anything about that. He was trying to make the argument, he was trying to argue from, like, people around Prabhupada couldn't have poisoned Prabhupada because that means that Prabhupada would have, been implicated in choosing people around him who, it's kind of like, it would be the equivalent of arguing that Judas couldn't have betrayed Jesus to the Pharisees because that would have meant that Jesus wasn't omniscient because he trusted someone who then went and betrayed him, right? Similar kind of argument. Or you could argue it even closer by saying there could have been no child abuse in the Gurukuls, or the zonal acharyas, let's imagine this, the 80s, and you're arguing that, no, the zonal acharyas must be pure devotees and perfect, because if they weren't, it would mean that Prabhupada was wrong, and et cetera, So that argument's just invalid that he's made. But the reason why the GBC is making that argument is related to that, because the idea that Prabhupada was poisoned, like, you're like, oh, well, we could do something about it. There's nothing we can do about that. This idea of, like, justice for Prabhupada, what a joke. justice for Prabhupada. The karma is the universe is perfectly just. There's no justice, but what it is it is a statement about how much and to what degree, like even the fact that it's possible means that you should operate with a framework where you're like, yeah, potentially the people around Prabhupada, someone in there was involved in administering poison to him with intent. So it is like an erosion of the level of trust from 100%. But nobody should have 100% trust in 2025 in that leadership anyway. It's a statement about the organization, the legitimacy, the trustworthiness. That's what they're trying to guard against.
Which is fair, an organization that is that big, and ISKCON, who is created by Srila Prabhupada, and the purpose is to, awaken different souls in this lifetime. And what is requiring is the society to be run in a way that is smooth and trusting and safe. Definitely you want to know who are these people running this, the whole organization. Because so far what we've been observing is so many gurus, basically they're being kind of like, let me put it in a joking way, clowns. So many things has been going on here.
When you say gurus, I just want to just to get some rigor to this. What is it that you're pointing to with that?
For example, the atrocities that have been happening in the ISKCON organization, like raping the children and doing all of this massive amount of disciples. They don't even have the time to even dedicate the time to their disciples. It's just like a fame and popularity, or maybe money is obviously involved in that. When we see all of that, obviously it's gonna make you wonder. When something is run in a way that is strict and clear and transparent, you don't get to see all of this, because these irregularities and atrocities won't be part of it.
Okay, so what you're pointing to when you say the word guru, from if I can understand it, is what you're saying is one of the devotees in ISKCON who is officially an ISKCON initiating guru.
Not only one, there are many people.
No, but
I would say there are some gurus that are
but when you say
linked.
Guru, when you say guru, you mean a devotee who is an official
A sannyasi, this initiating people, they're called sannyasis, right?
No, sannyasis is different from gurus.
Well, the saffron initiating people.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or they call it the most prominent people.
Yeah, I guess this is what they're trying to, because it's like everyone now is being tarred with the same brush. But I mean, when you say the gurus are doing this, it's like you're talking about like official people who are like, oh, this person is a guru, because like if you have a look at the definition of what the word guru means, if you go back into the Vedic history and the Vedic tradition, it's like saying the fathers or the sons. Like for example, those people are the sons of someone, but you can't say when the sons do something or when the men do something, because that's over specified, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because now you're including in that.
Oh, all of that, general.
Yeah, so like gurus are not. And then the other thing is, the other argument of that would be like, the people who are doing that, are they acting as guru? Like, what is guru? The guru principle, or like is it like a kind of a role? So it's kind of like,
it sounds more like it's a title given to people, but they are not running under the principles of the scriptures.
Yeah. So that would be an argument to say that they were not guru, or they were disqualified from, or they were not acting as guru, or something like along those lines.
I don't know. Yeah. But what I'm pointing out is, if this happened to Srila Prabhupada, which history tells us,
mm-hmm.
even with like one of the movies that I've been watching is about this guy, this king Suleiman in Ottoman. When I look into that, it's like, okay, it was some of the things that was common there to poison people through the food, and also one is like one dose that is potent that can kill the person in one go, or small amounts over time, and the person gets really sick, and then they top up and the person is gone. So that is nothing new. Poisoning people is nothing new.
Yeah.
Then it leaves you with an open question. That is possible that could happen to him.
I mean, Chitraketu's son was poisoned, and that's like a long time ago.
Yeah. Now the thing is, if I observe what's going on right now with these 11 appointed gurus.
Well, they're all gone except for one.
I know they're all gone. But if we
two of them are still there.
If we look into the history of these people, is they have the title of guru, but they did not follow the principles.
Yeah.
What a guru should be following.
Yeah.
When you look at that, and it's like, okay, if these people were the way they were, of course, it gives you the open door for you to say,
well,
I would,
yeah,
100% say there is 100%
it's possible,
that these people obviously could have done this.
Yeah, that's like a on the court refutation of Venkat Bhatta's argument. He's like, what did that say about Prabhupada? And that I made that, that was the argument I made, was like, well, what happened after Srila Prabhupada left, and what happened and what was done with the authority, and what continues to be done with like the book editing, for example. What does that say about the people who took control of things after Prabhupada left? Well, yeah, they're obviously, I mean, like, it's incontrovertible that like devotees were murdered after Prabhupada left. So it's like, what kind of people did he have around him? Well, the kind of people who ended up, in prison for, it's like, anyway. The other argument that people make about it is, it's like they make like a theological argument that it's not possible, like it's just not possible. And then one of the ways they do that is they say, well, Prahlad Maharaj got given poison, but it didn't work, so why would it work on Prabhupada? I mean, that kind of way of arguing is like, because you can give another. Well, anyway, it's very easy to refute that argument. The argument itself is flawed. It doesn't prove. It's not a proof. To explain why that's not a proof to someone, if they don't realize it and understand that already themselves, is like a little bit. I mean, I would, if I wanted to explain that, because I understand it intuitively, but to articulate it and put it in someone else's head, I would ask ChatGPT. But basically what's happening there is they're taking a specific case and then they're generalizing that out and making it an absolute universal. But just because something happened to one person or something didn't happen to one person, doesn't mean that it can never happen to anyone. I mean, just because Prahlad Maharaj took poison and was administered poison and it didn't have any effect on him, like, here's another example. Krishna is shot with an arrow and it goes into his heel, but then it kills him somehow, because it's like, I don't know whether it says that it was poisoned or how that was meant to work. But there's an intermediate material cause. But there's an even more powerful refutation than that, right? And that's let me share this thing here. This is from the actual do it here. Is it this one?
Okay, that's the one.
Hang on, let me just check. Okay, yeah, so it's this one here. Share. Okay. This is the conversation where Prabhupada says, not that I'm poisoned.
Mm-hmm.
So Tamal Krishna says, since 1977, Vrindavan. Srila Prabhupada, you said before that it is said that you were poisoned. So here we have someone saying that Srila Prabhupada said that someone else said, right? He's saying that Prabhupada said that someone else said. It's like 3 levels of Chinese whispers already. Prabhupada says, no. These kind of symptoms are seen when a man is poisoned. He said like that, not that I'm poisoned. So Prabhupada's saying, someone said that like these are the symptoms that are seen when a man is poisoned. He said like that, not that I'm poisoned. So he may have been saying indirectly, like, hey, like it looks like you've been poisoned. Like these are the kind of symptoms. Tamal Krishna, yeah, did anyone tell you that, or you just know it from before? Okay, this is interesting. I'm not going to, read the tea leaves here or anything. Prabhupada, I read something. Actually, that's an interesting exchange. Tamal Krishna, I see. That's why actually we cannot allow anyone else to cook for you. Prabhupada, that is good. Tamal Krishna, Jayapataka Maharaj was telling that one Acharya, Shankaracharya, of the Shankaracharya line, this was a while ago, he was poisoned to death. Since that time, none of the Acharyas or the gurus of the Shankara line will ever take any food cooked except by their own men. Prabhupada, my Guru Maharaj also.
What is he referring to?
Well, he's referring to one of two things. He's either saying that his guru was poisoned, or that his guru would not eat any food except cooked by his own men, for fear of poison or to avoid being poisoned.
We don't know what he was referring to. That. Yeah.
Well, it's one of those two things, right? But the point here is that anyone who says that, Prabhupada couldn't have been poisoned because some theological argument, Srila Prabhupada himself here states that either his guru was poisoned or his guru was taking action to avoid being poisoned.
Yeah.
That's what he's saying here. So that's like just an easy refutation. And it's funny how everybody, while they talk about this first one, are like, either that, these are they have like these kind of symptoms are seen when a man is poisoned. So one people will quote that, and then the other people will quote, not that I am poisoned, so those are the two things.
Yeah, but this is kind of like interesting to when I read it comes to me like this. These kind of symptoms are seen when a man is poisoned. Okay, so he developed these symptoms and he's experiencing them. He said like that, not that I'm poisoned. What is he referring here? What could he referring to him? Is like he didn't say I am being poisoned.
Correct. Yeah, he said that these are the symptoms that appear when someone's being poisoned.
Yeah. So who is that someone that told him that you have the symptoms that of someone that being poisoned?
It's funny because the next thing that happens is that, first of all, you said before that it is said that you were poisoned. And then Prabhupada says, no, these kind of symptoms are seen when a man is poisoned. He said like that, not that I'm poisoned. And then Tamal Krishna says, yeah, did anyone tell you that, or you just know it from before? And then Prabhupada says, I read something. So did anyone see in
that question is a bit dubious for me.
In what way?
It's like, if I look, this is just like my hypothesis. If I knew, or I myself did poison someone, and that someone that I poisoned is saying, hey, somebody said that he's been poisoned, all the symptoms, and I ask, holy crap, did he actually knows that he's been poisoned? Have I been caught? So let me double check what he's actually talking, whether he knows or not.
Maybe.
And the way to find out that is this question. Did anyone tell you that, or you just know it from before?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. But
it's tricky. Given the history of all of these appointed gurus, I'm just like, I don't know how to take all of this.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying about that one there. Like, that's reading the tea leaves. That's really reading the tea leaves to me. I mean,
that is the thing.
It could
you
be,
have
but-
to question everything these days,
Yeah.
especially given the history. You have to question everything they say.
Well, yeah. We don't have to, but
I mean, right now we don't have to, but in
I mean, the thing that seems
we
clear to
can,
me,
of course.
the thing that seems clear to me here is that Prabhupada suspects that he might be being poisoned, or he's worried that what's happening to him is the result of poisoning. And the reason I say that is because he says, Srila Prabhupada, you said before that it is said that you were poisoned. So Prabhupada's just, instead of saying like, I think I'm being poisoned, or I'm worried that I'm being poisoned right now, instead of saying that, he's said something in the indirect way of saying like, oh yeah, it was said that that I'm being poisoned. Because hang on a second, let me finish. Because then Prabhupada says, no, these kind of symptoms are seen when a man is poisoned. He said like that. Not that I'm poisoned. He said like that. So Prabhupada says he said like that. But hang on, let me finish.
Yeah.
But there's no one who said that in this statement. Because Tamal Krishna says, yeah, did anyone tell you that? So he doesn't say who said that. He says, did anyone tell you that?
What's another way you asking?
Or exactly. Or you just know it from before. And then Prabhupada says, I read something. So either Prabhupada doesn't want to say who said it.
Yeah.
Prabhupada doesn't want to say. I mean, see, if you wanted to take the full conspiracy view here, Tamal Krishna is poisoning him. Prabhupada knows he's poisoning him because someone told him that. And so they're dancing around it and they're not coming out and directly saying it. That's one reading of this, the tea leaves, yeah.
Yeah, the other thing is like Srila Prabhupada being straight up, he has to really know that actually he's been poisoned, like factually seen it with his own eyes. So he doesn't want to create an accusation, perhaps. And that's what he's saying in that way. Because he doesn't want to do that to his own disciples, right? Because he's been so kind, and he does, I wouldn't like to say,
and maybe
I've been poisoned, what I mean?
And maybe he's not being poisoned. Maybe he's just sick. He's 81 years old.
I know, but these kind of symptoms are seen when a man is poisoned.
Yeah.
What does it tell you? I got the symptoms of a poison. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So that sentence is like very straight up for me. What do you read?
I'm just seeing what they're talking about before that.
Mm.
So there's a pause, and then Tamal Krishna says, Srila Prabhupada, you said before that it is said that you were poisoned. I wonder where that is, that it's referring to the previous conversation. You said before that it is said that you were poisoned.
Yeah, so I imagine he was having a different conversation with other disciples, or maybe the doctor who was treating him, and there was this conversation, and then these people heard about it and said, oh, you said that you've been poisoned. Like, this is like a very straight up statement. You said that you've been poisoned. And he's rectifying, no, these kind of symptoms are seen when a man is poisoned. So it's basically saying yes.
Well, I mean, even in the question itself, it's like, you said before that and then he's changed it to that it is said that you were poisoned. Because this here, it switches between Srila Prabhupada saying something and then someone else has said it. It is said in it is said that you were poisoned.
Well, it's a third person hearing him, what he said, and he understood that Srila Prabhupada is like third person, right? You having a conversation with, let's say, Prahlad.
But and
then Prahlad said about your conversation, and then I come to
what I'm pointing to is that in this conversation here, but the triangulation doesn't seem to be real. It doesn't seem to be real because both of them, both Srila Prabhupada and Tamal Krishna, switch between there's this mythical third person who's not there. See, Tamal Krishna says, you said before that and then so he's like, you said, and then he's like, oh, no, it is said that you're poisoned. Like, you're not saying that. Someone else is saying it, like this mythical third person who's not there. And then Prabhupada says, no, these kind of symptoms are seen when a man is poisoned. So he's changing the claim from I'm poisoned to these symptoms are seen. And then he says, he said like that. He said like that. So this third person, he says, oh, yeah, the third person, he said like that.
So
Not
he
that I'm
said like
poisoned.
yeah.
Yeah. So then Tamil Krishna says,
Most like
yeah.
a doctor.
Did anyone tell you that? So he's saying, is there actually a third person? Or do you just know it from before? See, he's saying, like, did anyone actually tell you that? Or is this your idea?
Is there a recording?
Yeah, there is. And then Prabhupada says, I read something. There's no third person in there.
Yeah, but I don't know. Probably the whole sentence hasn't been.
And then Tamil Krishna says, I see. So Prabhupada's saying it, he's saying it without saying it. Does this thing move if we move it? Let's have a look. Okay, let's see if we can. I'd have to share it. We'll listen to it another time.
Anyways,
and then we can go into it in more depth. I think we should do the episode with Dira Govinda.
Yeah.
Who wrote the book.
We also need to listen the whole recording.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then people are into like the backmasking of the tapes, and they're like, you listen to the things backwards and everything, and like.
Well, at least they did something, right? Rather than just speculating and debunking it. At least they did something, which is good. In order for you to say something, you have to dissect.
I mean, the jury's out for me on backmasking. I mean, it could be true for all I know. Yeah.
Well, if it's true, I was just like, no wonder why.
I mean, backmasking, I was into backmasking way before this poison thing, because that was the whole claim in the Judas Priest suicide case. Some kids blew their head, shot themselves in the head with a shotgun. One kid survived and his face was all munted. But they'd been listening to it was a song on Stained Glass by Judas Priest. It was Sad Wings of Destiny, maybe. And anyway, they sued Judas Priest. And they said, yep, they made them kill themselves with their music. And they went into the court, and then they said, if you play the song backwards, you can hear it saying, kill yourself. And so that's how backmasking kind of entered the main consciousness. It was part of the kind of the satanic panic around heavy metal. And I'm like, look, I'm open to it, because if you have a look, you have the acharyas, and they say that Saraswati incarnates on the tongue of someone when they're speaking. Like Shishupal, when he's blaspheming Krishna, before he gets like regime changed so they can put a Pandava friendly prince in there instead of a Kaurava one, to switch the Chedi kingdom over before the Kurukshetra war. Yeah. Shishupal, he says to Krishna that you are Naradama. Yeah, and I think it's Baladev or Vishwanath, might be Vishwanath, who says, I think probably Vishwanath actually. I'll tell you why in a second, because he says that Naradama, which means like the lowest among men, Nara Adama, the lowest among men. He says it can also mean one who makes all other men go down. Like he's the topmost. So the
rotten apple.
So the point he's making there is that even though Shishupal is blaspheming Krishna, like insulting him, his words can be interpreted and they have another meaning, which is like the opposite meaning of that. So Saraswati does that.
You know what? Talking about that, about listening to tape and backwards. The Christians actually used to do that.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. That's the Judas Priest thing.
And I listened that, because I come from a Christian family, and I used to listen to that. And you can hear in the tape like the voice and the sentences weren't exactly like the song, but it was like something really horrendous.
That's what I'm saying, is like, because Judas Priest go in there and Ozzy Osbourne and others, and they're like, we didn't go into the studio and figure out how to do this stuff backwards, right? But this is my point, is that because human beings think that our speaking is something that we do, but it's not. It's done by the demigods. And we're like, they can say like, oh, we didn't go into the studio and, record these messages backwards, but they think that they went into the studio and recorded the music forwards. But they didn't. Prakriti kriyamana ni gunai karmani sarvashaha hankara vimuthatma kartaham iti manyate. The bewildered think that they're the doer of the activities. Karmani sarvashaha ahankara vimuthatma. A foolish person. He thinks that I'm the doer. Kartaham iti manyate. Prakriti kriyamana ni gunai karmani sarvashaha, of activities that are all carried out by the three modes of material nature. So it's the demigods that do everything. They're the intermediate. There's 33 million, you hear about 33 million demigods because they are like the intermediate personification of the forces that are downstream from the three modes of material nature that do everything. And so Goddess Saraswati is in charge of speaking. So when we're speaking like this, it's not me doing this. It's Goddess Saraswati is doing it. And so
you're just being a puppet.
Yeah, exactly. And so if you play it backwards and you hear a message in there, and I'm like, well, I didn't do that. And how could that be possible? It's like, how could speech forward be possible? It's because it's in our kind of like in our everyday experience that we're just like, oh, it's just that's, I'm doing that and that's possible. But the backwards thing, well, I didn't do that. I don't have any conscious awareness of that.
I guess that has to be done in a different type of modes, right? Like speaking in a mode of goodness, passion, and ignorance. It would be interesting to hear any recording that is in a mode of ignorance and mode of passion.
Well, that's a good point, because usually
they're also the mode of goodness.
Yeah.
I wonder what is the sound vibration of it.
Yeah. How come they never do backmasking like on, it's always backmasking to find some negative conspiratorial kind of message. Nobody's just like routinely analyzing all kinds of speech to find backmasking kind of messages in there. And I don't know, like whenever I gave an explanation of how backwards messages in speech could be a thing. And it doesn't rely on the conscious awareness of someone inserting it in there. And because Goddess Saraswati is constructing the speech in the first place, sure, that stuff could be in there. At the same time, all of the backmasking stuff that I've ever heard, it's really required like creative listening and, subtitles to be able to hear it. Like I would never have listened to it backwards and like gone, like I can listen to things forwards and clearly hear it. But I can't listen to it backwards and clearly hear the message, coming out. But this is the other claim that's made around that, is that somehow your subconscious has a way of detecting the messages that are in there backwards. And yeah, they don't sound the same as the messages that are in there forward, although they're similar, but they get processed by the subconscious mind somehow. So yeah, that's the backmasking concept.
Yeah, it's interesting to know that, because the three different modes, right? And I've been looking into different entities. There are certain entities that live more in a mode of goodness, passion, and ignorance, and they are the one who latch into this kind of like people. Like if people are in the low, but they call it now, this is quite famous, going on now in 2025. I don't know for how long it's been going, but now people are discovering about vibration. Everything's about vibes, energies. So there are certain energies that are negative and other energies that are positive, and there are sort of entities that are way more attracted to the lower type of energies, and they exist because Lord Shiva is in charge of lot of
Bhutanath.
Yeah.
The Bhutas, the ghosts.
Yeah, the ghosts.
Prachetas.
Yeah, so they are attracted actually to that. So when I look into that and then I put the pieces together, like that could be. There are entities in a lot of low mode, and also Lord Shiva is in charge of them. And they're attracted to certain things, like the mosquitoes. The moths. Sorry, they're attracted to the light. obviously this energy will be attracted to that. So that, and also isn't like in Bhagavad Gita, the whole teaching is, you have to increase your knowledge and to purify yourself and be able to communicate with God, or go to Goloka Vrindavan, and you have to purify yourself. What does it mean when we're talking about vibration and energy?
Okay, well,
it's a different
Yeah.
subject, which obviously you probably not jump.
well, mashing
But
together the vibration and the energy and the three modes of material nature. I mean, I'm sure, yeah, why not?
Yeah, so it's like looking at different angles, and for me, and just like looking at different angles, it's like
I'm
okay.
like very precise, I'm like everything to be like, yeah, like precisely specified, like Sankhya, like exactly what the thing is. So
Yeah, but the whole knowledge is not only Sankhya. There are different other knowledge, mystic knowledge.
yeah, that's true.
You
I
know
mean,
what I mean?
yeah, it's heuristic. It's like, it's like I always use this example. It's how to tie a bowline knot. When I was in the Scouts, they showed me how to tie a bowline knot, and you get the rope and then you curl it over itself so that it makes a loop, and then you push one end up and you say the rabbit comes out of the hole and he goes underneath the log and then he goes back down the hole again, and then you pull it, and now you've got a bowline knot. There's no hole, there's no rabbit, there's no log, but it's a heuristic,
Mm-hmm.
And so there's ways of like encoding information and understanding things in patterns. Like another good example is the Manu Samhita. It says, don't defecate or urinate in the water because it's an offense to the demigod Varuna. And then people can be like, oh, how primitive. There's no, demigod Varuna of the thing, and you're not going to offend him, blah, 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 blah. And then, they create these waterborne sanitation systems and then wreak havoc on the ecosystem in the area. And then the water becomes polluted and they can't drink it. And then it's problematic. And then they arrive at the conclusion that, oh, we shouldn't put the sewage into the water, which they could have arrived at that conclusion at the very beginning using this heuristic of this idea, if you want to call it that, of a demigod called Varuna who gets offended if you defecate in the water. So what seemed like a primitive superstition was actually a very complex concept encoded in a very simple and easy to understand form. So, I don't discount something just because it can't be precisely specified that it's not going to. There must be a name for this, but I don't know what it is. But it's like arriving at the correct conclusion, but through faulty reasoning. Like, you can do something and then people go, oh, why do you do that? And then you give a reason why you do it. And the reason you give is just completely made up and wrong. But the thing that you're doing actually works, but for some other reasoning, It would be best if I could give an example.
Yeah. No,
Do you understand what I'm saying?
I understand what you're trying to say. It's like, yeah, could it be that one? Like people are trying to now these days, people that hasn't read the Bhagavad Gita or the Srimad Bhagavatam, they're trying to get to that through this knowledge of like, oh, vibration or energy, or you just like you have to feel it in your gut. If it's right, then you do it. If it's wrong, you don't do it. They're going into that, but there is this thing about like Paramatma living in your heart. He's speaking to you.
Yeah.
So they are trying to get to that, but for a different method, like you explained, through a different method. But they don't know the source of everything, the real thing, like what is all the explanations of the knowledge that is in the Srimad Bhagavatam. So yes, so they're trying to lead their life through that method. They don't believe in God, but they believe in energy. You know what I mean? So it's just in a different mode. These people are in a different mode, and it's okay. They're just discovering the world. How if they are lucky enough, then they will have the higher knowledge, which is shown in Srila Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita. So, and also everything is, as Bhagavad Gita said, is your karma. If you are going through this method, then it's according to your karma. And if you have the chance to read the Srimad Bhagavatam and the Bhagavad Gita, it's your karma too. Everything is arranged by karma.
Does it say that?
No, it doesn't really say that.
I'm trying to
but-
see. I'm trying to compose that out of like actual statements from the Gita, because lots of people say that Bhagavad Gita says X, Y, and Z, and I'm like, where does it say that? Like, I'm open to it. I'm open to that as like a a conclusion that you derive from, because the Bhagavad Gita is a series of sutras, and they're strung together on a thread. So sutra means like sutures,
Mhm.
like for sewing people up.
Yeah, sutras. Yeah.
Yeah. So sutra, it means a thread. And so the different sutras, the different verses in the Bhagavad Gita are like beads that are strung along a thread.
Mhm.
And what you're meant to do is you're meant to infer the thread from the presence of the beads. Like if I hold up a thread that's really thin, but it has some beads on it, you might not be able to see the thread, but you can see the beads, right? So you can see the line of the thread.
Mhm.
And so in the same way, by reading the sutras of the Bhagavad Gita, then you're meant to infer the actual line that goes through the whole thing. So you can say that the Bhagavad Gita says X, Y, or Z, something that's not like a direct verse, translation, and then you can support it by showing how that's like the line of thinking. But at the same time, people have abused that, and then they just say, "Oh, the Bhagavad Gita says that," like, and then they'll just say anything, like literally anything, like. An Indian guy at my work in Wellington in like, I don't know, 99, 2000,
Mhm.
he said to me, "Oh yes, come to lunch with me, because the Bhagavad Gita, it says that if you eat by yourself, it's sinful." And I was like, I don't know if it says that, but I've meditated on it for some time now. It's been like, I don't know, 27 years or something,
Mhm.
26 years, 25, 26 years. And I'm pretty sure that what he was talking about is some kind of interpretation of the verse that says that the devotees of the Lord are protected from sinful reactions because they offer their food first in sacrifice. Those who eat food that is not without offering it first to the demigods verily eat only sin.
Yeah.
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 I think he was talking about some kind of interpretation of that verse.
Yeah. But there is somewhere, I think it's in Srimad Bhagavatam, where there is nothing that doesn't move. There is not even a leaf that doesn't fall down if it's not by the will of Krishna.
Yeah, not even a blade of grass moves without the will of the Lord. But I don't know if that's a verse from the Bhagavatam itself, but Prabhupada quoted it several times.
Yeah. So if nothing is done without the will of Krishna, wherever people are and wherever they are in their evolution is by the will of Krishna.
Yeah, well, Krishna says, everyone follows my path in all respects.
Yeah, and all is karmic. So that's how I understand it. So, if people being the way they are and following this pathway of vibration thing, then it's like, okay, God allow them to be in that area.
Yeah, exactly.
And then they will find their own way. There is a direct way to find to Krishna or relate to Krishna or go back to Goloka Vrindavan, or there is a different pathways, and people are free to choose the longest way or the shortest way. You know what I mean? This is what I'm referring to.
Yeah, I get it. So to wrap it back around, devotees, it's a matter of faith that devotees will either believe that Prabhupada was poisoned, believe that he wasn't poisoned, be agnostic on the matter, have differing degrees of doubt or whatever, openness to the idea, according to a number of different factors, 3 modes of material nature. Ultimately, sarva karana karanam, Krishna is the cause of everything, and everyone's following his path in all respects. So therefore, the speaking of the Brahmana is not to try to, jalpa or vitanda, like to try to win something or to try to destroy some other opposing party's argument. It's simply to connect people back to the process for developing their Krishna consciousness, which means that Brahman is speaking should be, this is unknowable according to our philosophy, because our philosophy is that truth claims require pratyaksha, anuman, and ultimately the Siddhanta given by Shabda, supported by Shabda Praman. We do not have Shabda Praman for this. So Anuman and Pratyaksha, while useful, are subject to various defects: misperception, cheating propensity, imperfect senses, tendency to be illusioned. So these 4 defects of the conditioned living entity, and then the defects of like Anuman, like logical error, they mean that we can never arrive at conclusive truth simply through Pratyaksha and Anuman in the absence of Shabda Praman. So both sides, anyone who doesn't speak like that is not acting as a Brahmana, because they're not taking people back to the Shastra, because it's through contact with the holy name and with Shastra that the destiny of the living entity is changed. The destiny of the living entities is not changed by mundane arguments and people going outside the domain of the Shastra Praman. So they're leaving the shelter of the Shastra, the shelter of the Veda, when they start talking about the courts and the standard of the FBI and all this stuff. It's like, dude, that's just mundane.
I guess it's necessary. All of that is valid. You know, even their thinking pattern is valid in my own perception.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how, my question is, I don't know how to find or how to use the Shastra to come to the conclusion that he has been poisoned or that he has not been poisoned.
We can't.
Exactly. So then what are you going to lean over? Is we have this material process to follow to find out. And as any child, you know, they will always want to defend and protect Srila Prabhupada. And it's good. It's valid with what they're doing.
Yeah, no, yeah, it is. But all I'm pointing to there is that we have to be careful about this, because I say that both sides in this, what they're doing, it's a, okay, I'll fully acknowledge that this is going to sound conspiratorial to people.
Both of them are valid.
Well,
I'm not going only for, you know,
yeah,
it's valid that you are, you know,
I
ferociously going forward, and
yes.
you want to find out who was.
Okay.
At the same time, yeah, it is valid that the other party is saying no, because that could cause a lot of disruption and whatever is the logical thing behind
let me
it.
make my point
it's
here.
All valid. Okay,
yeah, let me make my point here.
Okay.
They're mixing a philosophical deviation into this. And it's the one that I pointed out before. Yes, it's valid, and people to be emotionally connected to it, motivated by it, you know, protecting Prabhupada. Everybody can acknowledge that that's everybody's concern for Srila Prabhupada and his mission. Is it, well, unless they are ill-motivated and they know what happened, right? Because that can also be there.
Yeah, for sure.
So that can also be there. But for the general mass of people, they're going to be the people who are like, you know, motivated by varying degrees of, you know, attachment to Srila Prabhupada and asakti, you know, and bhava. But this is my point. It's got poison mixed in with it. The poison is mixed into the argument itself, and the poison is what I'm pointing to, is that they are departing from the shelter of the Veda, the Shastra Praman, Shastra Chakshush. They go away from seeing the world through the eyes of Shastra. It's the same thing that happened during the pandemic, when those swamis and everyone started speaking on bases other than the Shastra. And I said that, like, the speaking of the Bhagavat is not here. I don't hear people repeating the Bhagavat. I hear people talking about mundane things, viruses and then mundane authorities like the NIH and the CDC. And I was like, the speaking of the Bhagavat has disappeared. Now, what's happening with this poison thing on both sides is the speaking of the Bhagavat is being displaced. Again, that's poisonous, because if they don't start from the, you know, the Praman and the Shastra Praman, Shabda Praman is missing here. So basically, in any debate with someone else on this matter, it's like, we will not arrive at a Siddhanta on this matter. It is impossible for us to arrive at a Siddhanta. Let's say that I was debating Prabhupada is not poisoned and you're debating Prabhupada was poisoned. At the beginning of that, as if we're Brahmanas, we would say it will not be possible for us to achieve a decisive conclusion in this conversation because we are missing Shabda Praman. We are under the shelter of the Veda, and the Veda does not contain a statement about this. So the best that we will be able to achieve in this is we will be able to make a presentation of probable relative truths based on faulty ways of knowing, empirical evidence, and reasoning. Without that conversation at the beginning, everything that those people do after that is not Vada, it's Jalpa and Vitanda. And it's not the speaking of Brahmanas.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Your point is that, yeah, I understand that. Because it's not going to be the priority, right? To discuss about the, what the Siddhanta says about this or that, I mean, it's not going to take part of it because it's not going to take part of it. It's going to be more in the empirical thing and reasoning.
Yes.
And, and then maybe some evidence of this and evidence of that. So that's basically what it's going to be. Because we're dealing with something material, which is the poisoning of a body of someone very prominent.
Yeah.
And obviously, all material things will be in base of that.
Yeah. The conclusion of that is like what I said before, that ultimately at the end of it, it will be a question of devotees' faith. Some devotees will have faith that Prabhupada was poisoned, and some devotees will have faith that he was not poisoned, and neither of those can be established as a conclusive truth. So for the GBC to make some statement that he definitely was not poisoned is a deviation. It's a deviation.
For sure. Yeah, I can understand that, making a conclusive decision that he hasn't been poisoned without any evidence.
Well, not even without any evidence. It's actually impossible to prove an absolute negative empirically. Like that, there's no way that you could prove it unless there was some Shastric statement that says it's like Prabhupada said they didn't go to the moon. And he didn't do it by examining the photos. He did it because the Shastric statement says that you can't go to the moon planet without taking the proper body to go there. You can't do it through mechanical means. So therefore, he was able to make a statement, like an absolute statement like that. And then he's like, I'll back this up with Shastra. And then he backs it up with Shastra. So that we accept as a Siddhanta. Even when so-called empirical evidence contradicts that. We're just
I think they could be. I guess they could be, because one of the things to back up this one, not specifically about, has he been poisoned or not, is like, we can take it back to, the body and the soul. Although Srila Prabhupada may have been poisoned, the body may have been poisoned and is finished, but that doesn't mean Srila Prabhupada himself has been finished completely, because the soul is eternal. You know what I mean? So there is a backup in that area. Well, there is a backup, but not specifically about like
whether he was poisoned or not. Yeah. But there's no Shastra that says that his body can't be poisoned. I mean, he dies according to his karma. Like Prabhupada says, if Krishna wants to kill someone, no one can protect him. And if Krishna wants to protect someone, no one can kill him. So that there's that. I quoted that during the pandemic as well. Same thing. He says no one can extend their life, not even for a second. So he's either like, it's either his karma or it's the direct will of the Lord. Prabhupada says that
he needed to go to a different planet.
Yeah, well,
continue his duty.
Yeah, Daivam Prakritam Ashritya, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, those Bhajantyananyan Manaso Daivam Prakritam Ashritya, that they're Mahatmanas tu Mamparta, Daivam Prakritam Ashritya, Bhajantyananyan Manaso Gyatva Bhutadam Avyayam. Yeah, those great souls, they're Mahatmanas tu Mamparta, Daivam Prakritam Ashritya. They take shelter of the divine energy. So they're directly under the shelter. And so Prabhupada says like death for a devotee is different for a non-devotee in the same way that being in the mouth of a cat is different for a mouse or a kitten. So same thing, but different experience. So Prabhupada he leaves his body when it's time for him to leave his body, not 1 second before, not 1 second after, and when he does, it's glorious. And the statement that Prabhupada was administered poison with intent, I don't say that Prabhupada was poisoned, to make that distinction clear, that someone administered poison, that Prabhupada was administered poison with intent, is a statement not about Prabhupada, not about Prabhupada's passing, not about how Prabhupada died. It's a statement about people around Srila Prabhupada. It's a statement about agendas that are at play, were at play, and remain at play today. That's what it's a statement about.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, for me, it's like I can sustain, Prabhupada was administered poison with intent. Why not? They did MLK, JFK, Jesus, JC, Prabhupada's easily on the
even
level
the kings
of them.
before. That was one of the
100%.
One of the best way to eliminate someone.
So, I mean, sure, why not? Yeah, I mean, he's an absolute rock star. Of course they would want to do that. I mean, they, just staying inside the, reading things on their service. They tried to kill Trump. Of course they'd try to kill Prabhupada, but they can't kill him unless it's time Prabhupada wants him to go. But that doesn't mean that they're not going to try.
Mm.
So, they could have. And even if nobody did that at the time, I'm just like, the operating framework that I use now is that there's definitely it's kind of like it's actually irrelevant whether Prabhupada was poisoned or not, whether he was administered poison or not, because he might as well have been. That is to say that there is obviously some systemic attack against Prabhupada's mission. And it's ongoing. The assimilation into the World Economic Forum, the changing of Prabhupada's books, the modification of Prabhupada's message, the backing away from everything that we saw in the COVID pandemic. It's like, that's why devotees now especially are way more open to the idea of it, because they're like, I mean, it makes total sense. It's like, it's consistent with what you've seen afterwards. It doesn't make it true. It doesn't make it necessary, but it's like, it's consistent with that, which doesn't make it true. And it doesn't need to be true for what we've seen since then to be the fact that they're trying to modify Prabhupada's books, that somehow these main leaders in this movement during the pandemic just absolutely replaced the Bhagavatam and Prabhupada speaking with just the speaking of the Asuras.
Mm.
I mean, yeah. But my point again is that in the way that the poison debate is being conducted within the society, they have mixed the same poison into it. And that is deviation from the fundamental Praman, the shelter of the Veda, the Shastra Chakshus that we have. It is our only shelter in this world. It's like Dhruva Maharaj in the 4th canto of the Bhagavatam, when the Yakshas are attacking, and there's all this illusion that they're casting for people, but Dhruva Maharaj remains fixed through the whole thing. See, if you are fixed in that, you're not going to be swayed by Pratyaksha and Anuman about things like all these kind of arguments that they come with, where they're like, oh, if you don't do this, then this, and you'll die and everything. It's like, we will die when Krishna says we will die, and not an instant before. And you're talking nonsense speaking to me in this way, telling me that if I don't take this thing, I'm going to die.
Mm.
You're speaking like a madman.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy. When they say, oh, yes, we're going to the moon, and look, here's our video from the moon. It's like, you're lying. These people are lying to us. We know that they haven't gone there. That kind of ability to see through all of that illusion that they're casting is only available to people who have firm faith in the Shastra and who know that Pratyaksha and Anuman cannot produce conclusive truth, and that they're subject to multiple levels of cheating and imperfection and failure. So when they start conducting the poison conversation and whipping up people's emotions and trying to get them, no, the Vedas, that's irrelevant. Don't worry about that. It's like, that's not important. It's like, nah, dude, that is the speaking of a demon. That is the speaking of a demon. And when devotees have because of their emotional attachment to it, started speaking like that, they've been captured by a psychological operation of the Asuras. That is my conclusion.
Which is valid too.
Yeah. We're not going to get to Kasyapa Muni versus Kardama Muni today. It's been an hour and a half now. Let's get Dera Govinda to come on and present the other case.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Let's do that. Goodbye.
Okay.
Say goodbye. There's a good podcaster here.
Oh yeah, this Balaji. When we went to India, he disappeared and he was gone for like 2 months, and then he just recently reappeared back again and went walkabout. Balaji. Hare Krishna. Param Vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam.
Jai Shila Prabhupada. Jai Shri Krishna.
We'll leave the studio in the stream. Hari Bol.